Alien bride shipped to the wrong address, but everything changed when she met his crippled son. The transport pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic vapor into the dusty air of Terrace. Nixara Trell blinked away the last remnants of suspended animation, her silver-white hair falling across her face as she stumbled forward onto alien soil. The light blue skin of her arms prickled in the harsh sunlight as she squinted at her surroundings. This wasn't right. "Destination, mining colony Terrace 9, Western Quadrant," announced the pod's automated voice. "Delivery complete. Have a pleasant day." "Wait," Nixara called, her voice still raspy from cryo-sleep. "There's been a mistake. I'm supposed to be on Proxima Station. I'm contracted to—" But the pod had already sealed itself, its engines powering up for departure. Within seconds, it vanished into the hazy sky, leaving her alone on a desolate landing pad surrounded by industrial machinery and prefabricated structures. "Damn it all to the void," she muttered, adjusting the wide-brimmed hat that somehow had remained on her head throughout the journey, and her fingers brushed against the metal bracers on her wrists, checking that her few possessions remained secure in the hidden compartments. The contract had been clear: transport to Proxima Station, marriage to Administrator Vance Holloway, 5 years of companionship with the option to renew. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than the alternatives back on her war-torn homeworld. Now she stood abandoned on some backwater mining colony, with nothing but the clothes on her back and whatever credits remained in her account, assuming they'd transferred this far from civilized space. Nixara straightened her brown corset with its distinctive metallic accents and tugged at her heavy fabric skirt. The outfit had been chosen to appeal to human sensibilities while maintaining some connection to her heritage. Fat lot of good that did her now. The settlement sprawled before her, a chaotic arrangement of industrial buildings, cargo containers, and hastily constructed housing units. Dust and smoke hung in the air, giving everything a gritty, washed-out appearance. Workers, mostly human, with a smattering of other species, moved between buildings with the weary gait of people who had long ago surrendered to routine. With no better option, Nixara began walking toward what appeared to be the colony's main thoroughfare. Her high leather boots clicked against the metal walkway as she moved, drawing occasional glances from passers-by. She was used to the attention. Her species wasn't common in human space, and her appearance tended to turn heads. After nearly an hour of wandering, trying to locate some kind of administrative office where she might sort out this mess, Nixara found herself in what passed for a residential district. The buildings here were slightly less utilitarian, though still bearing the unmistakable marks of prefabricated colony architecture. That's when she saw him, a small human boy sitting alone on a curb staring at the ground. His right leg was a mechanical prosthetic, crude by core world standards, but functional enough. The metal components gleamed dully in the sunlight, contrasting with his worn cotton clothing. Something about the child's solitude resonated with her. Perhaps it was seeing another being who seemed as out of place as she felt. Nixara approached slowly, not wanting to startle him. The boy looked up as her shadow fell across him, and to her surprise, he showed no fear at the sight of her alien features. Instead, his face broke into a warm smile that transformed his entire demeanor. "Hello," he said simply. "Hello," Nixara replied, finding herself smiling back despite her situation. The boy reached into a small satchel beside him and pulled out a strange fruit, roughly spherical with a faintly luminescent purple skin. He held it out to her. "Hungry? Dad says these are the best thing that grows on this rock." Nixara hesitated, then accepted the offering. "Thank you. That's very kind." "I'm Eli," the boy said. "What's your name?" "Nixara Trell." She sat down beside him on the curb, careful to leave appropriate space between them. "But my friends call me Nix." "Are you lost?" Eli asked, displaying the directness that only children seem capable of. She laughed softly. "Very. I was supposed to be somewhere else entirely." "Where?" "Proxima Station." Eli's eyes widened. "That's really far away, like super far." "Yeah," Nixara agreed, examining the fruit before taking a tentative bite. The flavor was surprisingly pleasant, tangy and sweet with an underlying earthiness. "It certainly is. Why are you here instead?" "A mistake. My transport pod brought me to the wrong place. Eli nodded sagely, as though shipping errors were a profound philosophical matter he'd contemplated deeply. That happens sometimes. Last month, Dad ordered parts for the harvester and got a crate of bathroom fixtures instead. Nixera couldn't help but laugh. There was something refreshing about the boy's straightforward perspective. "Eli," a deep voice called from down the street. "Eli, where are you?" The boy waved enthusiastically. "Over here, Dad!" A tall human man strode toward them, his powerful frame evident even beneath his thick work clothes. His face was weathered, with several days' worth of stubble shadowing his strong jaw. His eyes, a striking shade of green, narrowed as they fixed on Nixera. "Eli, what have I told you about talking to strangers?" The man's voice was stern but not unkind. "She's not a stranger anymore, Dad. Her name is Nix, and she's lost. The shipping company messed up and sent her here instead of Proxima Station." The man's expression shifted from suspicion to something more complex, confusion mixed with a hint of sympathy. "Is that right?" Nixera stood, brushing dust from her skirt. "I'm afraid so." Nixera, Trell. "I was supposed to arrive at Proxima Station today, but instead," she gestured vaguely at their surroundings. "Morgan Reed," he replied, extending a calloused hand. "Colony engineer, and you've already met my son, Eli." She took his hand, noting the strength in his grip. "A pleasure. I don't suppose there's a transport office around here where I might sort this out?" Morgan's expression darkened slightly. "Communications relay's been down for 3 days. Next supply ship isn't due for another 2 weeks. No." "I see." Nixera felt her heart sink. 2 weeks stranded on this dust bowl with nowhere to stay and limited resources. "She can stay with us, can't she, Dad?" Eli piped up, his eyes bright with excitement. "We have the extra room since Uncle Jace left." Morgan shot his son a look that clearly said this wasn't a matter for public discussion. "Eli, please." The boy's expression was earnest. "She gave me back my ball yesterday when it rolled under the water reclamator, and she's all alone here." Nixera blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, but I only arrived today." "I couldn't have." "Not you," Eli explained patiently, as though speaking to someone who didn't understand a basic concept. "The other blue lady. But she wasn't as pretty as you, and her hair was darker." Morgan's expression shifted to one of understanding. "He means one of the cerulean dock workers. They all look similar to humans with limited exposure to other species." "Dad, can she stay?" "Please," Eli persisted. Morgan ran a hand through his dark hair, clearly uncomfortable. "Ms. Trell probably has other arrangements in mind." "Actually," Nixera said carefully, "I don't. This wasn't exactly a planned detour." A moment of silence stretched between them, filled with the distant sounds of machinery and the colony's perpetual background hum. "We do have the space," Morgan finally said, his tone reluctant but not unkind. "At least until you can arrange passage off-world. Colony regulations require us to provide assistance to stranded travelers. I wouldn't want to impose—" "You're not," Eli insisted, standing up and taking her hand with the natural ease of childhood. "And Dad makes the best stew on the whole planet." Morgan's lips twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "It's the only stew on the whole planet, according to the commissary menu." For the first time since arriving on this dust-covered world, Nixera felt something other than frustration and anxiety. These two humans, one small and eager, the other reserved but decent, had offered her kindness when they had no obligation to do so. "Thank you," she said simply. "I accept your hospitality, and I'll find a way to repay it." Morgan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Come on then. Our place isn't far." As they walked through the dusty streets, Eli chattering excitedly between them, Nixera couldn't shake the feeling that despite the transport company's error, she might have arrived exactly where she needed to be. Morgan's home was modest but surprisingly comfortable, a standard colony prefab that had been transformed through small, personal touches into something that felt like a genuine dwelling. Handmade wooden shelves lined the walls, holding a collection of books, small mechanical projects, and colorful rocks that Eli had presumably collected. "It's not much," Morgan said as he closed the door behind them, "but it's home." It's wonderful, Nixara replied honestly. After the sterile transport pod and the dusty streets, the warmth of a real home felt like a luxury. Eli immediately took her hand, eager to show her around. This is the kitchen, and that's Dad's workshop corner. And over here is where we eat. And down that hall is my room and Dad's room, and you'll stay in Uncle Jace's old room. Morgan watched his son's excitement with a mixture of amusement and something deeper, a wistfulness that Nixara couldn't quite place. Eli, let Ms. Trell catch her breath before you drag her all over the house. It's fine, she assured him, and please call me Nix. Nix, he repeated, the name sounding different in his deep voice. Their eyes met briefly and she felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. I'll show you your room, Eli continued, tugging her down the hallway. The guest room was simple, a bed, a small desk, and a storage unit, but clean and well-maintained. A window looked out over the colony's eastern perimeter, where the protective dome met the planet's natural landscape. Uncle Jace left 6 months ago, Eli explained as he sat on the edge of the bed. He went to work on the orbital platforms. Dad says the pay is better, but the company is worse. Eli, Morgan called from the doorway, why don't you let Nix get settled while I start dinner? The boy nodded and hopped off the bed, his mechanical leg making a soft whirring sound. Can I help cook? You can set the table, Morgan replied, ruffling his son's hair affectionately. After Eli bounded off, Morgan lingered in the doorway. Sorry about the whirlwind tour. He doesn't get many visitors to show around. He's charming, Nixara said, removing her wide-brimmed hat and placing it on the desk. Her silver-white hair cascaded freely around her shoulders. You've raised him well. Morgan's expression softened. His mother deserves most of the credit for that. Is she? Nixara let the question hang in the air. She died 2 years ago. Mining accident in the Eastern Quadrant. His voice was steady, but pain flickered in his eyes. Eli was 4, lost his leg in the same incident. I'm sorry, she said softly. Morgan nodded, accepting her sympathy without elaboration. Bathrooms across the hall if you want to freshen up. Dinner in 20 minutes. After he left, Nixara sat on the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by the day's events. She removed her metal bracers, placing them carefully on the nightstand, and ran her fingers through her hair. The contract marriage she'd been heading toward had been a practical decision. A way off her war-torn homeworld and a chance at stability. There had been no illusions of romance or connection. Yet here, in this unexpected place with these unexpected humans, she felt something she hadn't anticipated, a sense of belonging. Dinner was simple but delicious, a hearty stew with local vegetables and synthetic protein that Morgan had somehow transformed into something genuinely appetizing. Eli dominated the conversation, peppering Nixara with questions about her homeworld and her journey. So you were going to marry someone you've never met? He asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Eli, Morgan warned, that's not polite to ask. It's all right, Nixara assured him. Yes, Eli. It's called a contract marriage. Common where I come from, especially since the war. What war? Eli asked, spooning another mouthful of stew. Nixara hesitated, unsure how much to share. A civil conflict. My people disagreed about our future. It made living there difficult. Morgan watched her carefully, his green eyes seeming to see beyond her careful words. So this marriage was your way out? One of the few options available, she admitted. Administrator Holloway needed a diplomatic spouse for his position on Proxima Station. I needed passage off-world and a fresh start. But you didn't love him, Eli stated matter-of-factly. Nixara smiled gently. Love isn't always part of the arrangement, Eli. That's sad, the boy declared. Dad says Mom always told him that love is what makes a family real. Morgan cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Eli, why don't you get ready for bed? I'll be in to read with you in a few minutes. After Eli reluctantly departed, an awkward silence fell between the adults. Nixara helped clear the dishes, working alongside Morgan in a domestic rhythm that felt strangely natural. He's right, you know, Morgan said finally, his voice low, about love making a family real. Perhaps, Nixara replied, handing him a plate to dry, but sometimes practical considerations must come first. Love is a luxury not everyone can afford. Their fingers brushed as he took the plate, and a current seemed to pass between them. Morgan held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, and Nixara felt heat rising to her cheeks, turning her light blue skin a deeper shade. "Thank you," she said suddenly, breaking the tension, "for taking me in. You had no obligation to help a stranded alien." Morgan's expression softened. "Contrary to what you might think about frontier colonies, we look after people here. It's how we survive." "Still," she insisted, "it was kind." He shrugged, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. "Maybe I just wanted some adult conversation for a change. Eli's great, but there's only so much 6-year-old logic I can take." Nixara laughed, and the sound seemed to surprise him. His eyes crinkled at the corners, and for the first time, she saw him truly smile, a transformation that made her breath catch. "I should go read with him," Morgan said, drying his hands. "Make yourself at home. We can figure out your next steps tomorrow." As he walked away, Nixara found herself watching the confident set of his shoulders, the way his work clothes couldn't quite conceal his powerful frame. She quickly looked away when he glanced back, catching her gaze. Later, as she settled into the unfamiliar bed, Nixara could hear Morgan's deep voice from the next room, reading a story to Eli. The domesticity of it was both foreign and achingly appealing. On her homeworld, such simple moments had been shattered by conflict. In her planned contract marriage, such warmth would have been unlikely. She touched the metal bracers on the nightstand, fingers tracing the intricate patterns that concealed their true purpose. Her secret, the real reason she had been chosen as a diplomatic bride, weighed heavily on her mind. But for tonight, in this unexpected sanctuary with a broken family that somehow still radiated more warmth than anything she'd known, Nixara allowed herself to imagine a different future than the one she'd resigned herself to. A week passed with surprising swiftness. Nixara found herself falling into the rhythm of Morgan and Eli's life with unexpected ease. She helped prepare meals, accompanied Eli to his lessons at the colony's small school, and spent evenings listening to Morgan's stories about Earth, a planet she had only heard about in historical texts. This morning, she stood at the kitchen counter, watching Morgan prepare breakfast. His movements were efficient, practiced, a man accustomed to managing on his own. Yet there was something different about him today. His eyes lingered on her a moment longer when their gazes met, and his fingers brushed against hers, accidentally when passing utensils. "Dad says you're pretty," Eli announced as he entered the kitchen, his mechanical leg whirring softly. Morgan nearly dropped the pan he was holding. "Eli!" "What?" "You did say that. I heard you telling Mr. Harker yesterday." Nixara felt her skin warm, the light blue deepening to indigo across her cheeks. Among her people, such directness about attraction was reserved for intimate settings, not casual breakfast conversation. "It's not polite to repeat private conversations," Morgan managed, his own face flushing. "Sorry," Eli said, not sounding sorry at all, "but she's pretty, and she makes the best pancakes." "Thank you, Eli," Nixara said, recovering her composure. "That's very kind." Morgan cleared his throat. "I got to head to the Eastern Quadrant today. There's an issue with the environmental regulators. Can I come?" Eli asked eagerly. "Not this time, buddy. School day, remember?" Morgan ruffled his son's hair. "Besides, it might get dangerous if the systems fail completely." Nixara looked up sharply. "Dangerous how?" "Nothing to worry about," Morgan assured her, though his expression suggested otherwise. "Just some atmospheric fluctuations. The Eastern Quadrant's been having pressure drops. Probably just a calibration issue." "I could come with you," she offered. "I have some experience with environmental systems." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "From your homeworld?" "Yes." She hesitated, conscious of Eli's curious gaze. "I wasn't always destined to be a contract bride." Something flickered in Morgan's eyes, respect, perhaps, or curiosity. "All right. Could use an extra pair of hands." After dropping Eli at school, they made their way to the Eastern Quadrant in Morgan's utility vehicle. The ride gave Nixara a better view of the colony than her initial wanderings had allowed. Terrace was larger than she'd thought, with distinct sections serving different functions. Residential areas, industrial zones, agricultural domes. "How long have you been here?" she asked as they drove. 5 years. Came with Sarah, my wife, when the company first established the colony. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. The pay was good and Earth was getting crowded. Thought we'd build something new here. And then the accident happened. Morgan nodded, his jaw tight. Mining drone malfunction. Sarah was supervising the extraction team. Eli was with her that day. Special treat to see what Mom did at work. His voice grew rough. She shielded him with her body when the tunnel collapsed. Saved his life but cost him his leg. Cost her everything. She sounds like an extraordinary woman. She was. He glanced at Nixara. You remind me of her sometimes. Not in looks, obviously, but the way you are with Eli, the way you don't back down. The compliment warmed her more than it should have. They arrived at a large industrial building surrounded by warning markers. Inside, technicians moved urgently between control panels, their expressions tense. Reed! A heavy-set man with a commander's insignia approached. About time. Systems gone critical in sections 5 through 8. What happened, Harker? Morgan asked, immediately shifting into professional mode. Pressure's dropping, temperature's rising, environmental controls are fighting each other. Harker glanced at Nixara. Who's this? Nixara Trell. She's staying with me until transport arrives. Has experience with environmental systems. Harker looked skeptical but didn't argue. We need all the help we can get. If we lose atmospheric control in the eastern quadrant. I know, Morgan cut him off. Let me see the readouts. As Morgan examined the control panels, Nixara studied the system architecture. It was primitive compared to what she was familiar with, but the principles were similar. Something about the fluctuation patterns seemed deliberate rather than random. This isn't a malfunction, she said quietly. The system's being manipulated. Morgan looked up sharply. What do you mean? These patterns, she pointed to the oscillating readouts. They're too regular. Someone's feeding false data into the system. Harker scoffed. That's impossible. The environmental controls are isolated from external networks. An alarm blared suddenly and red warning lights flashed throughout the facility. Pressure critical in Section 8, a technician shouted. Structural integrity compromised. That's near the school, Morgan said, his face paling. Eli, the words had barely left his mouth when the building shook with a distant explosion. Emergency protocols engaged automatically, sealing off sections of the colony. We need to get to the school, Morgan said, already moving toward the exit. Reed, we need you here, Harker called after him. My son is there. Nixara caught Morgan's arm. Wait, I can help. She pulled him aside away from the others. With trembling fingers, she activated a hidden mechanism on her metal bracers. The decorative patterns shifted, revealing a control interface unlike anything in the colony's technology. Morgan stared. What is that? The real reason Administrator Holloway wanted a bride from my world. Her voice was low, urgent. These contain atmospheric manipulation technology. My people developed it during the war. I can stabilize the section long enough for evacuation. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You're not just a refugee. No, she admitted. I'm an atmospheric engineer and a fugitive. My faction lost the war. These bracers were supposed to be my dowry and Holloway's real interest in our arrangement. For a moment, Morgan said nothing, processing this revelation. Then decisively, can you save those children? Yes. Then do it. His trust in her, despite the deception, made her chest tighten. Nixara activated the bracers fully. A holographic interface sprang to life around her forearms, drawing gasps from nearby technicians. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, inputting commands that would temporarily stabilize the atmospheric pressure around the school. I need to get closer, she told Morgan. The range is limited. They raced to the utility vehicle, ignoring Harker's shouts behind them. As they sped toward the school, Nixara continued adjusting the bracer's settings, fighting against whatever force was deliberately destabilizing the colony's systems. Why didn't you tell me? Morgan asked, his voice tight as he navigated through emergency barriers. Would you have trusted an alien fugitive with advanced technology around your son? She countered. His hands flexed on the steering wheel. I don't know, but I'm trusting you now. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted between them. The attraction that had been building all week transformed into something deeper, a connection forged in crisis and unexpected honesty. As they approached the school, Nixara felt the familiar hum of her technology working against the sabotage systems. Through the vehicle's windshield, she could see children being evacuated, teachers maintaining remarkable calm despite the chaos. And there was Eli, his small face scanning the crowd, looking for his father. "Dad!" Eli broke away from his teacher and ran toward them, his mechanical legs struggling to keep pace with his excitement. Morgan swept him up in a fierce embrace, relief evident in every line of his body. "Are you okay?" he asked, checking his son for injuries. "I'm fine," Eli assured him. "We were doing evacuation drills when the alarms went off. Ms. Price said we did better than the grown-ups." Morgan laughed shakily, pressing his forehead to his son's. "That's my boy." Nixara watched them, her bracers still humming with energy as she maintained the atmospheric stability. The pattern of the sabotage was unmistakable, a signature she'd seen during the war. The next collective had found her. "Morgan," she said quietly, "we need to talk. Somewhere private." He nodded, understanding the urgency in her voice. "Harker," he called to the commander, who had just arrived at the scene. "I'm taking my son home. Nixara has temporarily stabilized the atmosphere, but we need a permanent solution." Harker looked between them suspiciously. "What exactly did she do?" "Those devices aren't colony tech." "I'll explain everything later," Morgan promised. "Right now, we need to secure the children and find out who's behind this." Harker reluctantly agreed, turning his attention to the evacuation. As they drove back to their home, Nixara kept her bracers active, scanning for further atmospheric disruptions. "The next collective," she explained, once they were safely inside and Eli was occupied in his room. "They're the faction that won our civil war. They believe our atmospheric technology should be weaponized and sold to the highest bidder." "And you don't?" Morgan asked, his expression unreadable. "My faction wanted to use it to heal worlds, make uninhabitable planets livable." She deactivated her bracers, suddenly exhausted. "We lost. Most of my colleagues were executed or imprisoned. I escaped with these prototypes, the only ones designed for environmental restoration rather than destruction." Morgan paced the small living area. "So they followed you here? To a backwater mining colony?" "The sabotage pattern is unmistakable. But it doesn't make sense. How would they know where to find me when I didn't even know I'd end up here?" She frowned. Unless your shipping error wasn't an error at all," Morgan finished her thought. Their eyes met, the implication hanging between them. Someone had deliberately diverted her transport, perhaps hoping to recover the technology without the complications of Proxima Station security. "We need allies," Nixara said. "I can't fight the Nex alone, and they won't stop until they have my bracers." Morgan's jaw tightened. "This is my home. My son's home. I'll be damned if I let some alien faction threaten it." He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers entwining with her blue ones. "And I'll be damned if I let them take you." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. For her people, such protective declarations were reserved for the most intimate of bonds. The fact that this human man would stand between her and her enemies after knowing her for just a week was both baffling and deeply moving. "You barely know me," she whispered. "I know enough." His voice dropped lower as he stepped closer. "I know you risked exposing your secret to save my son. I know you've brought more life into this house in a week than I've felt in 2 years." His free hand came up to touch her face, fingers tracing the delicate patterns that naturally marked her blue skin. Among her people, such intimate touching was a prelude to deeper connection. Her pulse quickened. "On my world," she said softly, "this would be considered a declaration of intent." A smile tugged at his lips. "And what exactly would I be declaring?" "That you wish to form a bond. A connection." The translation was inadequate for the complex ritual her culture practiced, but the meaning was clear enough. "And if I do?" His thumb brushed across her lower lip, sending a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. Before she could answer, a small voice interrupted them. "Dad?" "Nix, are we in trouble?" They stepped apart as Eli entered the room, his young face serious with concern beyond his years. "No, buddy," Morgan assured him, though his eyes told a different story. "But we need to be careful for a while. Some bad people might be looking for Nix." Eli's brow furrowed. "Because of her special bracelets? I saw them glowing at school." Nixara knelt to his level. "Yes, they're very valuable, and some people want to use them to hurt others instead of help." "We won't let them," Eli declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. "Dad can fix anything, and you're magic." She smiled at his simple faith. "Not magic, just technology, but thank you for believing in me." A sharp knock at the door made them all freeze. Morgan motioned for Nixara to take Eli to the back room while he answered it. Through the partially open bedroom door, Nixara watched as Morgan spoke with a group of colonists, men and women she recognized from around the settlement. To her surprise, they weren't there to accuse or threaten. They had come to help. "We saw what she did at the school," said a woman Nixara recognized as one of Eli's teachers. "Those children would have been in real danger without her intervention." "The colony's been good to us," added a burly miner. "If someone's threatening it, we stand together." Morgan invited them in, and Nixara emerged from the bedroom with Eli. The colonists regarded her with curiosity rather than hostility. "This is Nixara," Morgan introduced her, "and she has a story you need to hear." As night fell over the colony, an unlikely alliance formed in the Reed household. Humans who had never ventured beyond their solar system listened as Nixara explained the next collective and the danger they posed. Rather than fear or rejection, she found determination and a stubborn refusal to be intimidated. Later, after the others had left with plans to watch for suspicious activity, and Eli had finally fallen asleep, Nixara found Morgan on the small porch that faced the colony's perimeter. "Your people are remarkable," she said, joining him. "On my world, different species rarely trust each other so quickly. Frontier life teaches you to judge people by their actions, not their appearance." He turned to face her, his expression softened by the dim porch light. "And your actions today spoke volumes." The tension between them, momentarily interrupted earlier, returned with renewed intensity. Morgan's hand found hers again, and this time there was no hesitation as he drew her closer. "About that declaration of intent," he murmured, his breath warm against her skin. "I think I'd like to make one." Their lips met in a kiss that bridged worlds, tentative at first, then with growing confidence as they discovered each other. His arms encircled her waist, pulling her against the solid warmth of his body. Her hands found their way to his shoulders, feeling the strength there. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Nixara felt a sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. Not with her own people, and certainly not in the cold arrangement she'd been heading toward on Proxima Station. "Stay with us," Morgan said softly. "Not just until transport comes. Stay." Outside the protective dome of the colony, the alien landscape of Terrace stretched into darkness. Somewhere out there, the next collective was moving against them. Tomorrow would bring danger and difficult choices. But tonight, in the arms of a human who looked at her and saw not an alien or a fugitive, but simply Nix, she allowed herself to imagine a future she'd never dared hope for. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "I'll stay." Dawn broke over the colony with an eerie calm. 3 days had passed since the atmospheric sabotage, and the colony had transformed into a vigilant community. Lookouts were posted at key locations, communication systems monitored constantly, and everyone watched for unfamiliar faces. In Morgan's home, a different kind of transformation had taken place. The night after their first kiss, Nixara had moved from the guest room to Morgan's bedroom. Their connection had deepened with each passing hour, her alien customs blending with his human ways in an intimate dance of discovery. The physical expression of their feelings had been both tender and passionate, bridging the gap between their different worlds. This morning, Nixara woke before Morgan, watching the play of early light across his sleeping face. The strong features that had once seemed so foreign to her now felt like home. She traced a finger lightly along his jaw, marveling at how quickly her life had changed. "Watching me sleep," Morgan murmured without opening his eyes, a smile playing at his lips. "A tradition among my people," she replied, leaning down to kiss him softly. "We believe dreams reveal the true self." He pulled her closer, his hand warm against the small of her back. "And what did my dreams reveal?" "That you are exactly who you appear to be." She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his human heart. Strong, loyal, kind. Morgan's fingers tangled in her silver white hair. "I never expected this," he admitted quietly. "After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. Then you literally dropped from the sky." "A fortunate shipping error," she said with a smile. His expression grew serious. "Was it, though? Someone diverted your transport here deliberately. We still don't know who or why they waited until now to make their move." The reminder of the danger shadowing their newfound happiness sobered her. "The colony patrols haven't reported anything unusual?" "Nothing." "It's like they're waiting for something." Morgan sat up, his bare chest catching the morning light. "I don't like it." A soft knock at the bedroom door interrupted them. "Dad?" "Nix, are you awake?" Eli's voice called. They quickly adjusted the bed covers. Morgan's relationship with Nixera was still new to Eli, though the boy had seemed delighted rather than confused when they'd explained that Nix would be staying permanently. "Come in, buddy," Morgan called. Eli pushed open the door, his mechanical leg making its familiar whirring sound. "Ms. Price says school's canceled again today." His face brightened. "Can we go to the observation deck instead?" "Please." Morgan exchanged a glance with Nixera. The observation deck was at the colony's perimeter, normally safe, but perhaps not ideal during a potential Nex infiltration. "I don't know, Eli." "We could all go," Nixera suggested. "My bracers can detect atmospheric anomalies. If there's any danger, we'd know immediately." Morgan considered this. "All right. But we stay together and we come straight back at the first sign of trouble." Eli whooped with excitement, rushing off to get dressed. When he was gone, Morgan pulled Nixera close for one more kiss. "You're good with him," he murmured against her lips. "He adores you." "The feeling is mutual," she smiled, her blue fingers contrasting against his tan skin as she touched his face. "On my world, family units are formed through choice rather than blood. Eli chose me that first day with his fruit offering. I just didn't realize it then." Morgan laughed softly. "Smart kid. Took me a bit longer to figure it out." They dressed and prepared a quick breakfast. As they were about to leave, a colony-wide alert sounded, not an emergency, but a notification. "Attention all residents," came Harker's voice over the communication system. "An unscheduled transport has docked at the main port. All security personnel report for verification procedures." Morgan frowned. No ships were due for at least a week. A cold feeling settled in Nixera's stomach. "We should stay home." "Too late," Eli said, pointing out the window. "Look!" A sleek private vessel was visible in the distance, clearly not a standard colony transport. Even from afar, its elegant lines and polished exterior marked it as belonging to someone of considerable wealth and influence. "That's an executive-class ship," Morgan said, his voice tight. "Only high-ranking administrators and corporate officials rate those." Nixera's breath caught. "Holloway!" Before they could decide on a course of action, their home communicator chimed. Morgan activated it cautiously. "Read residence," he answered. "Morgan, read." A cultured, unfamiliar voice responded. "This is Administrator Vance Holloway of Proxima Station. I understand you're hosting my fiancé." Morgan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice neutral. "Ms. Trell is staying with us." "Yes, there seems to have been a transport error." "So, I've been informed. I'd like to speak with her if I may." Nixara stepped forward. "This is Nixara Trell." "Miss Trell," Holloway's voice warmed noticeably. "I'm relieved to find you safe. When your transport failed to arrive at Proxima Station, I feared the worst." "How did you find me?" she asked, exchanging a worried glance with Morgan. "All contract bride transports have tracking beacons. Standard procedure for insurance purposes. It took some time to access the data, but once I did, I came immediately." There was a pause. "I understand there have been incidents at the colony recently." The careful phrasing made Nixara suspicious. What do you know about those incidents, Administrator? Perhaps we should discuss this in person, Holloway suggested smoothly. I've been granted permission to dock. I'll be at the Colony Administration Building in 1 hour. I hope you'll join me there. The communication ended, leaving an uneasy silence in its wake. I don't like this, Morgan said, pulling Eli protectively closer. The timing is too convenient. I agree. Nexara activated her bracers, checking for any atmospheric disturbances. But if Holloway's connected to the Nex, confronting him might be our best chance to uncover their plan. Or walk right into a trap, Morgan countered. She met his eyes steadily. I won't let them hurt you or Eli. Whatever happens, you two are my priority now. Morgan touched her face gently. We face this together. All of us. They arrived at the administration building precisely 1 hour later, having alerted their colony allies to be on high alert. Harker met them at the entrance, his expression unreadable. Reed, Mrs. Trell. He nodded curtly. Your visitor is waiting inside. The main conference room had been prepared for the meeting. Seated at the head of the table was a tall, distinguished human man with silver-streaked dark hair and an impeccable suit that looked absurdly formal in the utilitarian colony setting. Miss Trell, he rose smoothly as they entered. A pleasure to finally meet you in person. His gaze shifted to Morgan and Eli. And this must be the family who's been looking after you. There was something in his tone, a subtle emphasis on family, that made Nexara instantly wary. Administrator Holloway, she acknowledged. This is Morgan Reed and his son, Eli. Holloway smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm grateful to you both for caring for my fiancée. However, I'm afraid we have urgent matters to discuss. He looked pointedly at Eli. Perhaps the boy should wait outside. Eli stays with us, Morgan said firmly. Something flickered across Holloway's face. Annoyance quickly masked by practiced diplomacy. As you wish. Please, sit. As they took their seats, Nexara noticed Harker positioning himself near the door, hand resting casually near his sidearm. The room felt charged with unspoken tension. I'll be direct, Holloway said, folding his hands on the table. The Nex Collective has agents in this sector. They're after technology that I believe you possess, Mrs. Trell. And how would you know that? Morgan asked. Holloway's smile thinned. Because I've been tracking their movements for years. The atmospheric manipulation technology from Ms. Trell's world could revolutionize terraforming or become a devastating weapon in the wrong hands. Like yours, Nexara challenged. Unlike the Nex, I have no interest in weaponizing it. Proxima Station oversees terraforming projects across 3 systems. Your technology could help us transform uninhabitable worlds into homes for millions. It sounded reasonable, exactly what her faction had wanted to use the technology for. Yet something felt wrong. If that's true, Morgan said, voicing her doubts, then why arrange a contract marriage? Why not approach her faction directly during the war? Holloway's expression hardened slightly. Politics is rarely straightforward, Mr. Reed. Supporting her faction openly would have created diplomatic complications. The marriage contract that provided a discreet way to secure both the technology and its creator. And the sabotage here, Nexara pressed. The next pattern was unmistakable. They must have followed your tracking beacon just as I did. Holloway leaned forward. Which is why we must leave immediately. My ship has security measures that can protect you until we reach Proxima Station. Morgan's hand found Nexara's under the table, squeezing gently. And if she chooses to stay, that would be unwise. Holloway's gaze shifted between them, understanding dawning in his eyes. I see. You've formed attachments here. Before anyone could respond, Harker's communicator beeped urgently. He checked it, his expression darkening. Sir, he addressed Morgan, we have a situation at the school. Security systems detecting multiple atmospheric breaches. Eli's eyes widened in fear. My friends are there! Nexara stood immediately, activating her bracers. We need to go now. This is exactly what I warned you about, Holloway said, rising as well. The Nex are making their move. As they hurried from the building, Nexara couldn't shake the feeling that something about Holloway's timely arrival and warnings didn't add up. The way he'd looked at her bracers with barely concealed interest. The convenient timing of the new attack just as he was trying to convince her to leave. Outside, chaos had erupted. Colony alarms blared as residents rushed toward the school sector. In the confusion, Nixara felt a presence close behind her and turned to find Holloway matching her stride. "When this is over," he said quietly, so only she could hear, "you'll see that your place is with your own kind, not playing house with humans on some backwater colony." The contempt in his voice confirmed her suspicions. Whatever game Holloway was playing, it wasn't about protecting her from the Nex. It was about getting her and her technology for himself. They reached the school to find not destruction, but precision. The atmospheric disruptions were targeted, small controlled breaches that herded the children and teachers into the central courtyard. No one appeared injured, but fear was palpable in the air. "This isn't random," Nixara said, scanning with her bracers. "These are containment patterns, not attack formations." Morgan surveyed the scene with a tactician's eye. "They're boxing everyone in. But why?" "Because they're looking for someone specific," Holloway said grimly. "Someone already inside the colony." As if summoned by his words, a figure emerged from the school building. Miss Price, Eli's teacher. But her movements were different, her typically warm expression replaced by cold calculation. "That's not Miss Price," Eli whispered, clutching Morgan's hand. "She never walks like that." Nixara's bracers pulsed with warning. "Next biosignature detected. She's not human." "She's been here all along," Morgan realized. "Watching, waiting." The false Ms. Price's gaze locked onto their group, recognition flashing in her eyes. With unnatural speed, she moved toward them, her form subtly shifting beneath her human disguise. "Nixara Trell," she called, her voice carrying an underlying harmonic that marked her as Nex. "The collective sends its regards." Holloway stepped forward, surprisingly placing himself between the Nex agent and their group. "Commander Kale, I thought I recognized your infiltration pattern." The false teacher smiled coldly. "Administrator Holloway, still pretending to be humanity's champion? We both know what you really want from her technology." "Perhaps," Holloway admitted, "but at least I wasn't planning to weaponize it against civilian populations." Morgan moved protectively closer to Nixara and Eli. "You know this Nexa?" "Commander Kale leads their acquisition division," Holloway explained without taking his eyes off the infiltrator. "We've had encounters before." "Touching," Kale said, her form rippling slightly as she dropped more of her human disguise, revealing faintly scaled skin beneath. "But this doesn't concern you, human. The collective has claim to Trell and her technology." "No!" Nixara stepped forward, bracers humming with energy. "You have no claim on me or my work. My faction developed this technology to heal worlds, not destroy them." Kale laughed, the sound unnervingly melodic. "Your faction lost. The spoils belong to the victors." "Not this time," Morgan said firmly. He turned to Holloway. "Whatever your agenda, I'm guessing it doesn't involve letting the Nex get their hands on weapons-grade atmospheric technology." Holloway's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "For once, we agree." Nixara assessed the situation rapidly. "The children are still in danger. Morgan, get them to safety. Holloway and I will handle Kale." "I'm not leaving you," Morgan insisted. "Dad," Eli tugged at his hand, "we have to help my friends." The conflict in Morgan's eyes was clear. Protect his son and the other children, or stay with the woman he'd come to love. Nixara touched his face gently. "Trust me," she said softly. "I found my home with you and Eli. I won't let anything take that away." Morgan pulled her close for a brief, fierce kiss. "Come back to us," he whispered against her lips. As Morgan led Eli toward the trapped children, Nixara turned to face Kale alongside Holloway. The administrator drew a compact energy weapon from beneath his jacket. "Diplomatic insurance," he explained with a thin smile. Kale's disguise dissolved completely, revealing her true Nex form, humanoid but with iridescent scaled skin and eyes that shifted color with her emotions. "2 against 1? Hardly sporting." "Says the infiltrator who's been sabotaging an entire colony," Holloway retorted. Nyxara activated her bracers to full power, the holographic interface expanding around her arms. "You've been monitoring me since I arrived, haven't you? Waiting for me to reveal my technology." "We knew you'd use it eventually," Kale confirmed, "especially with the right motivation." Her gaze drifted meaningfully toward Morgan and Eli in the distance. Rage flared in Nyxara's chest. "You threatened children to draw me out? Effective, wasn't it?" Kelly's scaled hand moved to her wrist, activating her own device. The air around them began to shimmer as she manipulated the atmosphere. "Our version isn't as elegant as yours, but it gets the job done." Oxygen thinned around them, making breathing suddenly difficult. Holloway fired his weapon, but the energy blast dissipated in the altered air. Nyxara countered with her own technology, creating a stable pocket around them. "Your faction never understood the true potential of this technology," she said, fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "It was never meant to take life, but to sustain it." As the two alien women battled for atmospheric control, their technologies creating visible distortions in the air between them, Holloway circled to flank Kale. "Your infiltration is over," he called. "Colony security is already rounding up your operatives." Kale's concentration wavered momentarily, enough for Nyxara to expand her control. The next commander snarled and intensified her attack, creating a swirling vortex of depleted air around Nyxara. Across the courtyard, Morgan had reached the children. Nyxara caught glimpses of him organizing an evacuation, his natural leadership drawing immediate cooperation from teachers and students alike. Even in crisis, he remained steady. The human strength that had first drawn her to him now saving others, the sight gave her renewed determination. With precise adjustments to her bracers, she countered Kale's attack and then pushed further, creating a containment field around the next commander. Kale's eyes widened in surprise as her own atmospheric manipulation was neutralized. "Impossible. Our intelligence said your technology was defensive only." "You misunderstood," Nyxara replied, tightening the field. "Creating safe environments sometimes means removing threats." Holloway moved in with his weapon, but Kale wasn't finished. With a desperate gesture, she activated a secondary device. The ground beneath them trembled as the colony's environmental systems began to overload. "If I can't have your technology," Kale hissed, "no one will." Warning alarms blared throughout the colony. Holloway's expression darkened. "She's triggered a cascade failure in the environmental core. If it collapses, the entire colony loses atmosphere," Nyxara finished. She turned to Kale. "Call it off." The next commander smiled coldly. Too late. Across the courtyard, the evacuation halted as blast doors sealed automatically in response to the environmental emergency. Morgan looked back, his eyes meeting Nyxara's across the distance. Even without words, she understood his message. "Find a way. I believe in you." In that moment, clarity struck her. The technology in her bracers had never been meant for the limited applications either faction had envisioned. Its true potential was far greater. "Holloway," she said urgently, "can your ship systems interface with the colony's environmental controls?" He nodded. "Yes, but..." "Get to your ship. Prepare to stabilize the colony's outer atmospheric shield. What are you planning?" "Something neither the Next nor my people ever attempted." She met his eyes steadily. "I need you to trust me." After a moment's hesitation, Holloway nodded and sprinted toward the landing bay. Alone with Kale, Nyxara expanded her interface to its maximum capacity. The holographic controls spread around her in a complex three-dimensional array. "What are you doing?" Kale demanded, struggling against the containment field. "What my technology was always meant for." Nyxara began a complex sequence of commands, creating harmony where there is chaos. With Holloway coordinating from his ship and Morgan organizing the colonists, Nyxara channeled her technology into the colony's failing systems. The bracers grew hot against her skin as she pushed them beyond their design limits. But she persisted. Gradually, the alarms quieted. The atmospheric pressure stabilized, the trembling ground stilled. When it was over, Kale remained contained in Nyxara's field, her expression a mixture of rage and reluctant admiration. "You've improved the design." "No," Nyxara corrected her. "I finally understood its purpose." Colony security arrived to take Kale into custody. As the next commander was led away, Holloway returned, his typically immaculate appearance somewhat disheveled. "Remarkable work," he said, studying Nyxara with new respect. "Your technology just saved thousands of lives." Before she could respond, Morgan and Eli rushed to her side. Morgan gathered her into his arms, holding her as if he'd never let go. "I knew you could do it," he whispered into her hair. Eli hugged her legs tightly. "You saved everyone." Holloway watched their reunion with an unreadable expression. When they finally separated, he cleared his throat. "The contract between us is void," he said formally. "I can see your, attachments here are genuine." Nyxara nodded gratefully. "Thank you. However," he continued, "I would like to propose a different arrangement. Your technology could transform countless worlds. Proxima Station would value a consultant with your expertise, one who could visit periodically while maintaining her residence elsewhere." Morgan's arm tightened around her waist. "And the next will face Galactic Council justice," Holloway assured them. "Their infiltration of a human colony violates numerous treaties." 3 months later, Nyxara stood on the porch of their home, no longer Morgan's house, but truly theirs. The colony had recovered from the next attack, emerging stronger and more unified. Her position as both colony environmental engineer and Proxima Station consultant had brought new resources and opportunities to Terrace. Morgan joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they watched Eli playing in the yard. His mechanical leg had been upgraded with technology derived from her bracers, more responsive, more natural in its movements. "Happy?" Morgan asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. "More than I ever imagined possible," she replied, leaning back against his solid warmth. Inside the house, preparations for their bonding ceremony, a blend of her traditions and human marriage customs, were underway. Friends from the colony and even Holloway would attend, the administrator having developed a grudging respect for the human-alien partnership that had thwarted the Nex. "Not bad for a shipping error," Morgan murmured against her skin. Nyxara turned in his arms, rising on her toes to kiss him properly. "The best mistake of my life!" As Eli ran toward them, his movement fluid and confident with his new leg, Nyxara marveled at how the universe had brought her exactly where she needed to be, not to the arranged marriage she'd resigned herself to, but to a real family formed through choice, courage, and love. A bride shipped to the wrong address had found her right home after all.